Good afternoon and a very warm welcome indeed to today's iOB business webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on here. My name is Ben and I am the resident business coach here at iOB Business, and I will be taking you through today's webinar. Okay, so for those of you just joining us now, a very, very warm welcome. We are waiting for the 2 o'clock mark to approach before we get kicked off for today's session. So if you've been with us before, a very warm welcome back, and I'm sure you'll be more than familiar with how these webinars run. If this is your first time joining us, I think we have a few new faces on here. So first of all, a very, very warm welcome. And thanks ever so much for taking the time to join us today. Now, a little bit about how these webinars run before we get kicked off, just so you know what to expect as we go throughout today's session. First and foremost, if you do have any questions for today's session as we go throughout it, you're more than welcome to ask them. Please do in the grey Q&A box at the bottom of your screen there. You should see that, and you can ask any questions you like related to business, marketing, or the webinar itself. And what we'll do with those questions is we'll get to them at the end of today's webinar during the Q&A session. Now, one final thing to note before we get kicked off. We're going to cover 3 core topics here today, as always. And in between each of the 3 core topics, we're going to take a brief pause in between each one to give you a chance to ask these questions and indeed jot down any notes that you may wish to take as well. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to switch off my video camera now, so you shouldn't be able to see my face anymore, but you should hopefully still be able to hear my voice, and hopefully you can now see the presentation that we have for you on screen up there as well. All right, so today's topic of conversation, how to develop the confidence to close prospects. Okay, now, right before we get kicked off, if I could just ask you a very quick favor, please drop a line in the chat box. Just let me know that you can hear my voice okay, and that you can see the presentation that I have up on the screen there for you as well. Okay, so as soon as I get that confirmation, I'll know that we're ready to rock and we can get kicked off with today's session. It's going to be a good one. Okay, awesome. Thumbs up, smiley face, whatever works. That's absolutely perfect. Good. Okay, so looks like we're all clear, ready to go. Now, if you do have any technical difficulties, not that we ever expect you to, but if you do, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us in the chat box, and we'll see what we can do to get you back online and back on the presentation if you do drop off. Okay, so let's get started then with today's webinar, how to develop the confidence to close prospects. Okay, now your presenter today is myself. My name is Ben, and I'm a business coach. This is what I love to do. It's what I get to do, and it's a genuine passion every single day. I specialize in working with small businesses, just like many of the people on here, to help them achieve stability and growth to succeed. Okay, now today's discussion points, 3 core topics as always. Number 1, the majority of the battle is in your mind. We're talking about developing confidence here. Okay, how can we exude confidence when we go to speak with prospects, and how more so can we develop the confidence to close them as well? Number 2, one step leads to another. Okay, it's a very, very cool concept, something we're going to talk about in depth in point number 2. And finally, third and finally, you're going to win and you're going to lose. Okay, it's part of business, it's part of many things in life, and it's something that we will talk about. So beginning with topic number 1, the majority of the battle is in your mind. Okay, now I coach many, many people on this, many people on this concept of how can we develop confidence? How can we be more focused entrepreneurs? How can we be more confident entrepreneurs? And it's something that I love to talk about. I'm sure you can pick it up in my voice there. Okay, so first things first, it is rare for anyone to have full natural confidence to do anything. Okay, now if I can ask you a question, keep the answer, jot it down, put it in your mind, whatever you want to do with it. Okay, it's rare for anyone to have full natural confidence to do anything. So my question for you is something you're incredibly confident in doing. Now, for some of us, that's driving. For some of us, it's riding a bike. For some of us, it's just conversing with another person. For some of us, it's cooking. For some of us, it's, teaching things. For some of us, it's writing. Okay, now, whatever that could be, it could be anything. Okay, but think about something that you are truly confident in, so confident, in fact, that you don't even have to think about the fact that you are confident in doing this. Okay, now that's something that we want to keep in mind, because when you're truly confident in something, you don't have to say to yourself, I'm good at this. You don't have to say to yourself, I'm confident, I can do this. It just happens. Okay, so I want you to think about something that you're truly confident in doing, so much so that you don't actually have to actively tell yourself, I am confident. Okay, Now, think back to the first time, if you can, that you did this. Okay, now I know it's a tricky one. I struggle to think back to the very first time I did something. Okay, but for the purpose of context, I want you to think back to the first time you ever did this thing. First time you drove. Okay, that's usually an easy one. First time you rode a bicycle. First time you spoke to a number of people in a public setting. First time you wrote an essay. First time you wrote a book, if you've written a book. Okay, how did it feel? Did you feel like you were smashing it every single step of the way? Did you feel like you were completely nailing every single aspect of it? I don't think so. Okay. And we know this. So it's rare for anyone to have full natural confidence to do anything. Now, it's not to say that when you got in the car, you didn't naturally feel comfortable and you were naturally more gifted to do that task than most, maybe. Same with a bike, same with writing, same with speaking. Okay. Any example you like. But it is extraordinarily rare for anyone to have full natural confidence to do anything. Okay. Now, the second you were beginning to trust yourself when you were learning how to drive, the second you were beginning to not need the instructor to work the pedals next to you, the second you began to pull off on your own without needing clutch control from your instructor. Okay. Now, any example, the same with bike and stabilizers, or the same with working with a teacher when you were writing an essay. Okay. There was a point where you became confident enough to do it on your own. Okay. But it didn't come immediately. So we must train our mind to new levels of what is acceptable to us as individuals when it comes to the tasks that we attempt. Okay. Now, the majority of the battle here is in our mind. Okay. We're talking in this webinar about developing confidence, specifically developing the confidence to speak to prospects. Okay. So we must train our mind to new levels of what is acceptable to us as individuals when it comes to the tasks that we attempt. Okay. And the training that we want to give ourselves is, you know what? I don't need to get it right first time. I don't need to smash it straight away. Okay. But you have to begin to trust yourself. You have to begin to understand, actually, you know what? I think I'm going to take a shot at this. And even if it's not perfect, even if it's not going to work perfectly the first time around, that's okay, because I'm going to work on it. I'm going to refine it. And a very, very, very big part of confidence in anything is refinement. Okay. You're trying to learn how to ride a bike. You're a bit wobbly, then you become less wobbly, less wobbly, less wobbly. Each time you learn how to do something, changing direction, slowing down, speeding up, you become that little bit more confident because you're compounding your skills. Okay. So we must train our mind to new levels of what is acceptable to us as individuals when it comes to the tasks that we attempt. Okay. And that can be any task, but we have to begin to understand, I'm not going to be 100% confident at it first time, and I'm not going to completely nail it right off the bat, but that's okay, because I've got time to learn. I've got time to figure this stuff out. Okay. Now, the other component of it being acceptable, okay, and what is acceptable to us, we have to give ourselves a little bit of courage. We have to give ourselves a little bit of an opportunity here to be a bit brave when it comes to things that we don't necessarily want to do. Okay, so something's cool to talk about here is the fight or flight response. Okay, it's uncomfortable, so you don't want to do it. Okay, now a very, very, very natural response is, oh, that doesn't make me feel good. I don't want to do it. Okay, now let's take an example of public speaking. Okay, this is a classic one in the business world. It's something that I coach people on. It's an element or an area better that I've worked in before, myself. It's something I've done myself. And what I can tell you firsthand, and what many of those say as well, many of those people say that I have spoken to about this, is the first time you decide to speak publicly, many people have many different concerns. Okay, some of the biggest concerns are, I'm going to forget what I need to say, or what if somebody's staring at me, or what if they think I look funny, or any of these things. Now, you're nervous, you go up on stage, okay, but you've practiced, you made sure you're well dressed, you're ready to present, you're ready to go. You go up, you do it, you nail it, okay? Even if you don't completely nail it, you understand it's okay not to be perfect first time. You get off that stage, you wonder why you ever had any hesitation at all about going up there in the first place, okay? You then realize, this isn't uncomfortable. I do want to do it. I want to get back up there and do it again right now. And something that is so common is when somebody comes off of doing something amazing that they were previously scared to do, they can't wait to get back and do it again because they want to show themselves continually again and again and again. This isn't scary. This is amazing. Okay. So look at other individuals closing clients, entering cold prospect environments. How did they do this? Okay. Now, the majority of the battle here is in your mind. Key things that you can understand. You don't have to perfect it first time. Natural confidence doesn't just come around. It's not just something that you immediately get right from the bat, right from the off. It's not how it works. Okay. It has to be continually practiced. Now, let's look at other individuals closing clients. What do? Okay. How do they get themselves into a cold prospect environment? How do they operate in this scenario? Okay. So your typical example is you're looking at cold prospects. Okay. Now, the business kind of definition of this is cold prospect, somebody that doesn't really know you, hasn't heard of you, doesn't really have any idea of what you could help them with. Okay. Probably one of the most daunting prospect scenarios that you could put yourself in. Okay, in the general scheme of things, and comparatively to that, you might have a very, very warm prospect environment where you've spoken to them a few times, they know what you do, and they're interested in your services. Okay, now that's almost a perfect sales scenario, and often it doesn't happen. Okay, we do have to work through cold prospect environments. Okay, now cold is relating to the fact that they don't really know us, they don't really know about us. Okay, so how do they do this? How do individuals do this? Do you think that they go in and then they say, I'm going to absolutely nail this first time around. Okay. I'm going to be perfect at this. I'm not going to make any mistakes. No, nobody truly believes that. Okay. Not in my opinion, anyway. Instead, they have the confidence to go in and think to themselves, you know what, if I do make a mistake, it's okay. And that's a different kind of confidence. It's the level of confidence where they have accepted, if this is not perfect, I am okay with that. I will not be embarrassed. I will not be shy. I will not shy away from an opportunity just because I may not perfect it the first time around. There are people who've done hundreds of sales calls, I'm sure, who still make mistakes. Okay. Going into these cold environments, it is daunting. So you are the person that has to give yourself that initial courage to go in and do it. And the more you do it, the more confident you'll become. You'll realize that your mistakes aren't that bad. What's the worst that's going to happen? You mince your words. Okay, laugh it off, move on. Okay. You make a mistake, correct it. It's no big deal. Okay. We're all human beings. We're all prone to error. Okay. So look at other individuals closing clients, entering these cold prospect environments. How do they do this? They do it by understanding that they are not perfect and that if they do make a mistake, it's okay. All right. But they go in, they are confident, they are well spoken, they are happy to project their voice and show physical animation, body language, really, really enjoy the scenario that they're in. Okay. That is how they do it. So that brings us to the end of topic number one. What we'll do now is we'll take a brief pause whilst we allow you to work through topic number one. And please go ahead and jot down any questions and any notes that you might have for us. And we will see you again in topic number two. Okay, fantastic. So moving on now from topic number one into topic number two, let's see what we have next. Okay, one step leads to another. Now, whilst we're talking about the fact of confidence, okay, it's much, much, much more easy to be confident when you are comfortable. Okay. Now, take this webinar, for example. Okay. It's a form of public speaking, less intimidating, shall we say, because it's not physically in person. So nobody's looking at me. But hopefully you can tell by the sound of my voice, the tone that I'm using, that this is a very relaxing and happy environment. Okay. That's because I've done lots and lots and lots of these webinars before. Now, I'm not sure, but if I scale back, what I am sure of is if I scale back to my first webinar, I would probably be somewhat different to what I am now when it comes to presenting. Okay. But it's an example of being comfortable. It's an example of being comfortable in an environment, but you are not always immediately comfortable in that environment. The first time you went to your job at work, were you immediately comfortable? The first time you joined a new class as a child, were you immediately comfortable? The first time you joined a sports group or any other kind of extracurricular activity, were you immediately comfortable? No, you waited, you made friends, you became familiar, and you became familiar with your surroundings. So eventually you became more and more comfortable. Okay, this is how it works. So one step leads to another. Okay, now what we have to look at here when we're looking at developing confidence, baby steps. Okay, you needn't conquer the mountain in a day. Okay, we don't have to scale the entire mountain in one day. You don't have to go from non-confident to completely 100% confident in a single day. Okay, it's okay to take it step by step. Okay, so baby steps, right? If you're nervous about something, try a little bit of it. Okay, now a great way to do this is if you have a kind of fear of working with prospects or a fear of going into a cold sales environment. Okay, just take a step back from that for a minute. Okay, maybe observe. If there's any way that you can observe in another call, in another way, just observe. Have a conversation with somebody who is maybe offering that kind of thing as well. Ask, another friend or colleague or somebody who does something similar to what you do, even if it's in a different industry. Just say, look, can I just observe? Okay, just make sure that you have permission, make sure that they have permission, and everybody's happy for you to observe, and just watch. Okay, it's baby steps. Now, next part, listen to what is going on in your mind. Okay, think about what it is that's making you nervous and try and isolate that fear factor. Okay, some people think, oh, it's because I'm going to get it wrong, or I'm not going to get a sale, or whatever that might be. And I want you to think about the worst case scenario. If you don't get the sale, so what? Okay, at least you went on, you got the experience of the call, you know what went wrong, you know what you can change for next time. Okay, baby steps. Nobody does it immediately. Nobody perfects it immediately. You have to give yourself time, one tiny step at a time. If you're nervous about doing a video meeting, try it on the phone first. If you're nervous about going on the phone, try it over email first. Okay, think about how we can do this. Introduce yourself to the new environment slowly but surely. Okay, now each time you try something new, you develop the confidence to move on to something else that was once intimidating. Okay, so if you think that having a phone call with a prospect is intimidating, going back and forth with them on email for a few times or a week or whatever, maybe then you'll feel confident enough and say, actually, yeah, okay, I'm fairly confident with that. I think that professional to professional, we could now have a phone conversation because I feel like I know this professional well enough to have a conversation with them. Okay, it's less intimidating, it's less daunting. Now, I'm not saying that you have to become best friends over email. What I am saying is put out a feeler for some of your ideas over email. Put out some of your suggestions, some of your service offerings over email first, because some people are nervous that their service offerings are going to get shot down. But at least if you know, actually they are interested, they know how much I charge, they know what I offer, they said they're happy with it over email, so I'd like to have a phone call with them to clarify if we can work together or not. Okay, so each time you try something new, you develop this confidence to move on to something that was once intimidating. Okay, and it's a very, very powerful thing. And it's more powerful because you're allowing yourself the time to learn as you go along instead of throwing yourself in right at the deep end. Okay, now practice makes perfect. You must be prepared to look silly, make mistakes, and learn how to overcome these barriers if you wish to grow those new skills. Okay, if I tried to take on something new like karate or something like that, I'm sure I would look quite silly at the start. Okay, but everybody was once a beginner, and this is what you have to remind yourself of. Okay, it's also helpful not to paint ourselves to be somebody that we're not. Okay, if we frame ourselves as an all singing, all dancing, level 100 expert in whatever field or category, and then we don't live up to those expectations, that's a way that we can make ourselves feel quite silly and maybe even make ourselves look a bit silly. Okay, so it's not necessarily saying to your prospect, I'm completely nervous and this is my first sales call ever. But you also don't want to say this is my 10,000th sales call and I'm super confident in this and that, if that's not the case and that's not true. Okay, but what you can do is just make sure that you're being transparent. You can tell them that you're new to the industry. You can tell them that this is a fairly new area, but you are very skilled and very talented because you've done the work to get to where you are today, to get to the point of running your own business. Okay, so if you wish to grow these new skills, you do have to accept the fact that you might look a bit silly, you might make some mistakes. That's okay. All right, once you develop the confidence to move past these mistakes and move past looking a bit silly sometimes, you will see yourself develop into a more refined individual in that field. Okay, so if it scares you, there's a good chance it's going to help you develop as a business owner. Okay, key message here at the end of topic number 2. If it's a little bit scary, if it's a little bit daunting, if it's a little bit intimidating, the chances are it's probably going to be a good thing for you to conquer it and hit it head on. Okay, so if it scares you, there's a good chance that it's going to help you develop as a business owner. All right, now that brings us to the end of topic number 2. What I'm going to do once again is give you a brief chance. Please go ahead and jot down any notes. And indeed, do feel free to ask away with any questions that you might have for me today as well on today's webinar. And I'll be right back with you in just a moment's time for the third and final topic of today's session. Okay, so moving on from topic number 2, one step leads to another. We're going to go on to the third and final topic of today's conversation. You're going to win and you're going to lose. Okay, this part, if we accept it, we will move forwards. Okay, so accepting failure is ironically an amazing skill to have. Why is that? Because it's only truly failure if we learn nothing from it. Okay, accepting failure is ironically an amazing skill to have. Why? Because if we were never willing to accept failure, we would never do something where we believed we could fail in. Okay, and if we never did things that we believed we could fail in, we would never do many, many, many new things. Okay, it's an absolutely incredible skill to have. Now, I'm not saying that, just quit all the time and deliberately, purposely fail all the time. But the ability to accept failure means that you'll try new thing after new thing after new thing after new thing. Okay, that is why it's an amazing skill to have. You accept this concept and you will move forward without fear. Okay, the fear of failure is something that stops so many people from trying something. Okay, they don't want to look silly, or they don't want to lose something. They don't want to lose some credibility. They don't want to lose any resources or anything like that. Okay, now what's important here is that you should always make calculated and educated decisions, but do not be afraid of it just because you might fail. Okay, it's not a valid reason to not do something. Now, it's only truly a mistake if you learn nothing from it in the business world. Okay, if I run a campaign and it doesn't perform the way I wanted it to, it's not a mistake, it's a learning curve. Okay, now cliche as it may be, it is absolutely true. If I just let that campaign fail, an advertising campaign, I just let it fail, okay, and I don't bother doing an analysis on it. I don't really bother reviewing it. I just say, oh, well, that's rubbish. It completely failed, and that sucks, okay? Then it is a mistake. It's a complete and total mistake, but the mistake isn't running the campaign. The mistake is my failure to analyze why it did not work, okay? Now, because I didn't analyze, I don't know what went wrong and what went well. So now I can't correct anything. I can't improve on anything because I have no data, no information. I didn't review my mistake. I didn't understand what went wrong. So I'm very, very, very prone to making exactly the same mistake again. Now, if you continually make the same mistake, it develops into a problem, okay? Now, that problem can be almost completely avoided if we simply do the analysis. What went wrong with the campaign? Was it the wrong audience? Was it the wrong content? Was it the wrong imagery? Was it the wrong creative? Was it the wrong angle? Was it the wrong service offering? There are lots of things to develop and understand, okay? But we cannot perfect the recipe until we know what doesn't work, okay? Now, you might hit it on the head first time, okay? You might absolutely nail it first time. You might get it absolutely, completely correct first time around, okay? So if that's the case, fantastic, okay, if you do. Now, the chances of you actually doing that are extraordinarily rare, okay? They're very, very, very unlikely. Most of the time, we start doing something, it's not working, we look at why it isn't, we repair it, we fix it until it is fully constant, fully able, and fully working, okay? So it's only a true mistake if you learn nothing from it. Now, each time you do not win or an interaction does not go as planned, make your assessment as to why this was the case. If you have an interaction with a cold prospect and they tell you to get off the phone, or you're leaving the phone call earlier than you expected to, or they're not listening to you, that's just one example. Ask yourself why. What was it? Was it your introduction? Was it the way you were speaking? Was it that you were being too forceful with whatever it was you were trying to sell? Did you come at it too fast, too hard, too quick? Or were you not being diligent enough? Were you not paying attention to what they were saying? Did you forget to kind of absorb what they were telling you and use that in part of your response? Okay, learn, practice, repeat with the knowledge that you have gained. Okay, each time you do not win or an interaction doesn't go as planned, make your assessment as to why this was the case and how you can improve on this. All right, now it's a very, very important part of becoming a better and better and better entrepreneur. Okay, a better business owner, understanding where we went wrong, why we went wrong, analyze it. Okay, look at every mistake, every failure as an opportunity to learn something from. Pick it apart until you figure out why you believe it didn't work. Once you have that information, use it, compound your knowledge with it, and correct it the next time around. Okay, each time you complete your assessments, you'll notice yourself improving. And this is what we're really getting to, the overall point of this webinar: continual improvement, continual refinement. So developing the confidence to close prospects is not going to happen today. It's not going to happen overnight even. It's not even going to happen probably next week or next month. But you will gradually notice yourself becoming more and more and more confident if you do everything that we've spoken about. You go in baby steps. You practice small things at a time. You allow yourself the chance to fail. You assess each failure, figure out what went wrong, and you build on it and you improve it. If you don't do these things, there is a very, very, very small chance that you will improve and you may just stay in the same place, which is, for some people, having a total lack of confidence when it comes to speaking with prospects. Okay, so that brings us to the end of topic number 3. What we'll do once more is give you a brief chance to go ahead, jot down any notes, and please do not hesitate to ask away with any questions that you might have on today's webinar. And I'll see you in just a moment's time for the recap on today's session. Okay, so let's recap on today's session then. Number 1, confidence is developed over time. It doesn't happen in a day, doesn't come overnight. Number 2, baby steps, trial and error. Try something, see if it does or doesn't work on it, improve, allow yourself to build and grow from it. And finally, embrace failure. Often it is how we learn. Okay, if we never failed, there'd never be much to learn. All right, so as always, a massive thank you for taking the time to attend today's webinar. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope that you've enjoyed the content that we've put here for you today. If you'd like to talk to a member of our team, you're more than welcome to head over to iob-business.com/talk-to-us. And on here, you can go ahead and book a call at a time that suits you. Okay, so we have the calendar up on screen. That's the same calendar that you'll see when you click the link. Okay, or if you pop the link into your search bar. Okay, now what we'll do whilst we're leaving that up there is we'll go and grab the questions that we have from you today. Okay, now, first question. I really don't like speaking to people I've never met. Cool, totally. All right, so, and that's a natural and understandable response. All right, now, if I may, I'd like to put forward the concept that once upon a time, you didn't know any of your current friends. Okay, you didn't know anybody in your current circle. So once upon a time, you had the confidence to speak with these people that you once didn't know. Okay, now it wouldn't blame you if you couldn't remember how you met your friend or how that came around. But once upon a time, you didn't know this person. Now you do. Okay, so that's really the only answer I have for you. You don't like speaking to people you've never met, but good things can come from it. Okay, and you do have the confidence to do it because you once upon a time didn't know some of the people that hopefully you're now close to. Okay, thank you very much. An amazing question. Second question. How many mistakes should I let myself make? That's a great question. Not one that I can put a number on. So the answer really, how much do you wish to learn? Okay, now I'm not saying that deliberately put yourself into mistakes again and again and again, but what I am saying is there's not really a limit of how many mistakes you should let yourself make. Okay, you might have to open 99 businesses before the 100th one works. Okay, you might have to answer 99 quiz questions before you get the 100th one correct. There isn't really a number. Keep going until you see yourself building and improving. Okay, chances are you'll always make mistakes, and the chances are hopefully you'll always be able to learn from them. It's another great question. Thank you for asking. Do we have any more? No. Okay, perfect. Well, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you today. I very much hope that you've enjoyed the content that we put forward to you today on this iOB business webinar, and I very much look forward to speaking with you again on the next iOB business webinar a couple of weeks from now. Take care and speak soon.